Hi, I'm Evie and I'm a fifth year medical student at Oriel College. I've been at Oriel all 5 of those years, so starting off doing my preclinical there and then moving into clinical school and going up to the John Radcliffe Hospital to do the practical side of the course there. I've really enjoyed my time at Oriel so far. I've had a wonderful time getting involved with lots of sports clubs and life at Oriel, and I've also really enjoyed my 3rd year specialising in infection immunity as one of my chosen options. But before I came to college and before I came to Oxford in general, I had so many questions that I wish I'd asked and I wish I'd had good answers to. And so hopefully here today we can ask and answer some of those questions for you. There's lots of people with us here today, so if I just ask, starting with you, Pamela, everyone to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Pamela Lear, and I tutor a fair amount of subjects on the Oriel course. And my main interests are developmental biology, so I teach that in the 1st year, and also obesity. So I help out with neuroscience and metabolism in the 2nd year, as well as contributing to the 3rd year, which is what's called FHS, your final honours school, which is like an integrated or an intercalated science degree that we all do at Oxford. I'll tell you a bit more about the structure if you like, but also it's now a 6-year course. So you get a place for the whole 6 years, not only those first 3 years of preclinical, but your 3 years of clinical that follow after that. And you're going to be told a little bit more about that by some of the other tutors.
Yes, I think one of the other questions that I had was kind of about how the tutorial system works. I think that Samana and Joe, maybe you were going to talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, so as Pamela was saying, with the structure of the course and the preclinical kind of first 3 years, it's very science heavy, and there's a lot of college-based teaching that comes with that. And so college-based teaching is mostly done through tutorials. So there's usually 6 medical students per year at Oriel, and for tutorials we'll probably break into 2 groups. So it's probably 3 students with one of the Oriel tutors, and you will usually have prepared a piece of work, usually an essay before the tutorial on a specific topic, and the tutorial is a really good opportunity to just kind of go through the question, the surrounding science and experimental evidence, and it's a really good opportunity also kind of to ask any questions you have that you might have had from kind of like the faculty-based, kind of more lecture-based teaching, because I think something I found really useful with the tutorials is that you kind of build a relationship with the tutor, and you feel a lot more comfortable going to a tutor and asking the questions that you might think are a bit silly, to put your hand up and ask in a lecture. And Samana, I don't know how you feel, but I think that's tutorials are a really good system for teaching like that.
Yes, so following on from that, well, I am a tutorial fellow in medicine in Oriel, and I focus on infection primarily and immunity. And we provide lectures in the university on these topics that we specialize in, and that's what my research is on as well, but also provide tutorials which function as a supplementary method of teaching. So it enhances what you learn in class. And this allows you to sort of delve deeper into a topic of interest and get acquainted with the state of research, the current state of research, ask questions like you already mentioned in a more informal setting, and also sort of come up with ideas and learn to critically analyze what research is all about, which sort of prepares you for future research and in academic research or in clinical research, to be critical about the scientific literature.
And like research, academic research does form a kind of, it has a big influence on the teaching, especially the preclinical side. And I think when I first came to Oxford, I found that really quite daunting, and wasn't necessarily something that I thought I would be interested in on the research side. But the more you kind of learn about it, the more you go into it, you realise that what we see in medical practice is primarily informed by academic research, academic medical research at all levels, whether that be clinical trials all the way back to kind of preclinical, molecular lab-based techniques. And I think it's really important to have to appreciate that and have an understanding of how it works and how that then translates to to eventually patient care.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said, Simon, about kind of developing analytical skills in your tutorials. I know that lots of people say about interviews that they should be kind of just like a tutorial, and I was wondering whether analytical skills is something you were looking at. Maybe Claire and Liasha, you could tell us a bit about the interview process there.
Yeah, so from the tutor perspective, we are definitely looking for how you think, and we kind of set the interviews up as like a mock tutorial, if you like. So you might be presented with some problems, and we want to see how you think through those problems. Also, whether you get them right or wrong, but also the process of how you get there. So don't be afraid to talk through what you're thinking when you're looking at a problem. We know the kind of things that you should know at A level. We know what you don't know. We're more interested in how you think about problems that maybe you've not seen before. We try and make them hopefully quite friendly. Hopefully Liasha can tell us whether that or not that's true. Don't be afraid to ask if you don't understand anything. We're happy to repeat things. Yeah, what do you think, Liasha?
So for my interviews, I just remember thinking that go to other interviews thinking of your like remembered answers of why I want to do medicine and stuff like that. Whereas for the interviews at Oxford, it was very much more looking at different ways of thinking and like developing your ideas by using like the hints and stuff that the tutors were giving you. So for my interviews themselves, I was actually staying at St Hilda's. So I had 2 interviews at St Hilda's, then I stayed the night there, and then I had 2 interviews at Oriel the next day, which is actually the college that I applied to. And also a thing to remember about interviews is that you're there to also experience college life for the first time. And I remember just sitting around with the other interviewees, like playing cards in the JCR, which is the junior common room and stuff like that. So it's just important to immerse yourself fully when you're going to interviews and asking the students who are there for like their takes on college life and everything. But yeah, the interviews themselves are very interesting in like retrospect. Like during the time I was terrified, but they are very interesting and they do help you for like at the end of the day they are just trying to see if you can learn in like a tutorial environment.
Yeah, there will be. So you will have 2 interviews in each of 2 different colleges. So you'll apply for a college and then you'll be assigned to a second college as well. And we as tutors are completely blinded as to which college you applied for. We don't know at all. So we don't let that bias us in any way as to who we select.
Yeah, and so Liasha, you say that your interviews, looking back, they're quite interesting. Obviously, you're 3 years on from them now, having just at your finals. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit through that final year and how it's maybe different to the other first 2 years.
Yep. So in 3rd year, it's very different to the first 2 years because you get to choose what you would like to study. So in the first 2 years, there's like a set syllabus of specific courses that everyone has to sit. But in 3rd year, you get to choose 2 options, so 2 lecture courses. So myself, I chose 2 neuroscience options, whereas I know Erin chose infection and immunity, and there are other things such as cardiovascular and then molecular medicine. And so basically you have, I think it's 8 lectures in each of those courses, and then 2 seminars as well. And that means that for exams, everyone sits different exams. So there are 3 papers in 3rd year. Paper 1 is based on the subjects that you chose. Paper 2 is more synoptic questions. So that's allowing you to do further reading past the syllabus and what you might have learned in lectures. So you can look at papers that you're truly interested in. And then paper 3 is critical reading of a scientific paper, which is going to help you develop those critical skills. And then also in 3rd year, FHS project, which is a lab project. And you can either go through the core system or you can go out of your way and like email someone in Oxford who's doing some interesting research that you would like to get your hands on, and you basically ask if you can help or if you can further their research in any way, and you spend about 8 to 12 weeks in a lab doing like, you're there with pipettes and stuff and feeling like a proper scientist, and then you write up a big lab project. And yeah, so 3rd year is consistent of the lab project, your 3 exams, and there's also an extended essay for any like further things that you're interested in. But yeah, so me and Erin finished our exams just last week. So we are enjoying freedom at the moment, and next week, we're going to be starting a Principles of Clinical Anatomy course and preparing us for clinical school, which I believe Chris is going to be talking to us about now.
Yep, so after surviving the first 3 years, the students move up the hill to the hospital complex in Headington, and they have 3 years of clinical practice, which continues the critical thinking aspect and hopefully the scientific basis of medicine. The first year is a combination of some experience in general practice, a course before Christmas of pathology called Laboratory Sciences, where you learn a lot of the basic aspects of underpinning clinical science, and then a combination of medical and surgical experience in Oxford and also in district hospitals. And throughout that year, there's also communication skills, ethics, and other so-called thread subjects. The 5th year is a mixture of different specialties that students rotate through, and some students get a chance to go abroad for either pediatrics or obstetrics during that time. And then the final year is a consolidation of the medicine and surgery, with final exams done in January. And that involves a combination of written papers and clinical, what are called OSCEs, observed clinical examinations. And after finals, which almost everybody passes, then people have a chance to go on electives, so they can go anywhere in the world for 8 weeks to experience medicine in a different environment before graduating in July and facing the public in August as a doctor. So there's a wide spectrum of things, and most students enjoy that and enjoy the experience of combining the scientific knowledge with the clinical skills they acquire.
So yeah, essentially you go from feeling like a proper scientist to hopefully feeling like a proper doctor. But of course, throughout your 6 years in Oxford, maybe at Oriel, medicine's not going to be the only thing you're doing. There's loads of things to get involved with here, lots of societies and lots of sports. I think, Arian, you're going to tell us a little bit about that now.
Yeah, so I've been at Oriel for 3 years and I'm going to be staying on for another 3 years, which I think, speaks to the fantastic time that I've had here in my undergrad course. Oriel is such a fantastic community. I think one of the benefits is that it's a smaller college. So there's kind of a real family feel, you get to know everyone. And as Evie mentioned, there's a lot of kind of societies, lots of sports and things to get involved with. So, from kind of the boat club, which is a massive part of Oriel, and rowing, we have kind of every kind of team sport you could imagine, from basketball, football, hockey, lacrosse. So if you want to get involved with kind of sport at a college level, which is kind of, not too much commitment, but still gives you a chance to kind of get your weekly exercise in. That's one of the fantastic perks. And then obviously kind of going all the way up to university sport, you definitely still have time to kind of carry on doing whatever sport it is you're doing to a high level while studying medicine. I know there's a lot of people are concerned about kind of managing workload and kind of social life and sport. But I think it's important to have both in your life to keep you sane and to keep you fit and healthy. And yeah, as I mentioned, Oriel is a fantastic kind of sporting college. They have a sports fund. So they can give you money to kind of support you if you're performing to a high level at university sport. And then they also really support their kind of college teams. So yeah, the kind of sporting life and just general community feel at Oriel is fantastic. And I couldn't speak highly enough of it.
So I think that they were most of the questions that were going through my mind before applying and before coming to Oxford. But I wondered whether any of you guys had any things that you were thinking about before applying, or anything you thought prospective applicants should know.
Well, I think one thing is just about the standard offer, which is that it's 3 A levels at grade A, with one of those being A star, so 2 A's and 1 A star minimum. And that's standard across all colleges because our admissions is done very centrally. And then we're also just going to remind you about the application process.
Yeah, because I remember when I was applying, in between kind of year 12 and 13, and wondering kind of what the process was between, applying in October via UCAS and then getting to the interview stage that takes place in December. I don't know, Chris, if you could just talk us through those steps.
Yeah, so when people apply, the central admissions will look at the applications and the GCSEs and the BMAT scores that people have had. But when people come to interview, we don't know the BMAT scores. We do that blindly. And as Claire has already said, we don't know which college you're applying for, and we don't know how you did at other interviews at other colleges. We have some information about you, which is what's called the contextualized GCSE, which means that depending on your GCSE score in your school, we get an idea of how well you've done in your cohort. And that gets rid of bias for some schools that might have slightly worse performance in GCSEs than others, and allows us to account for that. And we also have taken into account elements of deprivation if people come from more difficult areas in the country, and that's all taken into account with the application process. And in the end, when we select who we think we want to give offers to, we will eventually know what the BMAT scores are to try and rank people to whom we're making offers.
So given that there is the big split between the kind of preclinical and clinical course, I think one of the questions that often comes up is how does that first 3 years kind of benefit you in the clinical school, and how did you find that transition from that undergrad to the clinical kind of side of things?
From my point of view, I think having the 3 years of preclinical has really helped me in my first year of clinical school. You know, there is a degree of integration in preclinical. I think, you know, the Oxford course is not often considered to be integrated, but it is. We do have a patient doctor course. We call the patient doctor course in the first 3 years, which is where, you know, we go out to GP surgeries and we learn communication skills and just begin to think of the science that we're learning, you know, through a bit more of a clinical lens. And then, you know, so in my 4th year, there have been, you know, so many times where I've been on placement, you know, medicine and surgery, and I've seen, you know, things happening in patients, and the only way that I can understand what's happening to these patients is based on the science that I've learned in preclinical. And, you know, for me, if I had gone straight into the hospitals and GPs in my first year, I wouldn't have felt very confident. But, you know, and I'm sure Evie can attest to this, that I think the preclinical gives you a really, really strong foundation to then go and, you know, full throttle into your clinical course.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And I think the confidence is a big thing, kind of being really grounded in the scientific foundation and knowing why certain things are good clinical practice really helps orientate you when you get into clinical school. And also, although the course is split between preclinical and clinical, you spend your time as a whole cohort of medical students. And so you really integrate throughout the years. And so in my 3rd year before moving up to clinical school, we all had lots of discussions with the current 4th years. And you hear lots about what's going on and about what people are up to. And so I think that really helps you get a good sense of what your next few years will be like when you're in the preclinical part of the course.
Yeah, as in, like, across all 6 years of medical students at Oriel, you know, we're an incredibly social group. We all know each other well. You know, and we've always had the system where, you know, those in the years above will help those in the years below, you know, whether, you know, just kind of advice on how to tackle different styles of exams and moving from preclinical to clinical. So then, you know, there's another degree of integration there between the different year groups.
And we also organise social events, you know, so we all meet up, I would say, at least twice a term, kind of informally, either for dinner or something. So yeah, you know, I hope the students find, as much as we tutors do, that it's just a really nice community to be part of.